Are you a prepper or homesteader looking to connect with like-minded people in your area? Looking to start your own preparedness group? Already have a group? Well, look no further than PrepperNet. PrepperNet is dedicated to personal responsibility, individual freedoms, and being self-reliant. PrepperNet has monthly meetings in over 100 cities where you can meet and learn with like-minded people in your area. PrepperNet, where preppers unite. Find us online at preppernet.com.
Survive, thrive, stay alive. It's time to get prepared with the Prepping Academy podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Prepping Academy. I am Forrest. Tenderfoot is not in the house this evening. Tonight we're going to play a podcast that I was interviewed on last week. Two guys named Phil and Andrew that I met down in Prepper Camp. They have a pretty successful podcast. We were talking about security and privacy, a little bit about PrepperNet and what we're going to do with PrepperNet, and I'm going to do an entire show on PrepperNet, let you guys know what's going on with that. But Matter of Facts Podcast, you can find them at mofpodcast.com, mofpodcast.com. I hope you enjoy.
Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast. This is episode 98. Today, Andrew and I managed to Shanghai force Garvin to come on the show with us. We met him at Prepper Camp and sat in on one of his classes, and we were fortunate to con him into spending a little bit of time with us this afternoon.
Well, doesn't that cause or take money?
Not necessarily. See, it could just be, sneakery and subterfuge.
Yeah.
That usually works well.
I think he's just bored and has nothing better to do tonight.
Yeah, that's it.
How you doing?
Great. Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, for the listeners who were unfortunate to not attend Prepper Camp and sit in your seminar there, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Wow. Okay. I'm an ex banker, but before that, I was Air Force Special Operations. Stationed at Pope Air Force Base most of my time in the military. Got out of the Air Force, went back to college, then became a banker. I was one of the webmasters at Bank of America, and then did technology startups for about 10, 11 years. Y2K is what converted me to become a survivalist, is what we kind of called it back then. It's not so much a prepper, but became a survivalist. And I'm a perfectionist, so when I wanted to learn guns, I became an NRA instructor. When I wanted to learn survival skills, I became a survival instructor, and just so on. Even Krav Maga, I became a Krav Maga instructor. Been doing it for 12 years, and since then, I've just been trying to prepare the community and family and friends, and that's kind of my history. I've been in this since, again, I'm a Y2K baby, I guess.
Yeah. Once the clocks on the computers turned to zero, it was going to wipe everything out.
That's exactly right. So what really scared me, at the bank, we had to make sure all our systems were tested and worked. And we did that, and we were finished in August, early August. And my friend was the chief technology officer at a huge nuclear power plant, electrical company here in town. You could probably put the two together. And he was telling me that they couldn't find programmers to test their equipment. And I'm like, are you kidding? And this was it was the day before Halloween. And it kind of petrified me to think that they weren't finished testing, and in a month and a half or 2 months away is when the big clock switched over. So and my first preps was salsa, chips, baby formula, some water, and some candy. That was
spoken like a father.
We didn't know any better. I just didn't know.
Yeah. Huh, that's interesting.
This does beg the question, though, because I haven't really ever had a chance to talk to somebody that was this well acquainted with it. How serious of a concern was Y2K? Because, I mean, from our perspective now, looking back historically, nothing really happened. But I wasn't really deep into computers at that point in my life. I mean, I was born in 82, so do the math. I was still young enough not to know any better.
Well, in the beginning, we were concerned that money would just literally spit out of the ATM machines. I mean, we had no idea. As we got along through it, most of our machines or computers were, we were getting off some mainframes, but we still have mainframes. And as a bank, on the weekend, a lot of times, especially back in the late 90s, you could turn the whole system down for a couple hours and people wouldn't notice it. I mean, if our website went down in 1999, from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning, it wouldn't make a big deal like it would today. So we actually had all kinds of time to test it and actually run the clocks and test it. The problem I had was looking at the nuclear power plants. You just can't do that with some of their software. That was the concern. A lot of their software had to be tested in what they called a sandbox environment because you just couldn't shut down reactors and start testing it. So for the bank, we knew we were good. Our concern and other people's concern was, power plants, utilities that, provide the water, all this, because they just couldn't shut down and test like that.
Okay. No, like I said, it's an interesting point, though, because, I mean, I guess now looking back on it, I lose sight of, like, how little interconnection there was back then. Because I had this conversation, sidebar, with my neighbor's kids. They're, I think, 15 and 17. And I was relating to them that way back in the day when we used to play video games together, you'd actually have to run a cable between the two computers.
Right.
And they looked at me like I had two heads, and like you had to hook the computers together. You couldn't just play over the internet. I'm like, the internet barely had enough bandwidth to load anything. It'd take a couple of minutes just to load text.
Oh, yes, I started a work from home environment in 1995, and these people came up with the idea of pairing two phone lines together, and it's called an ISDN line, and you get 56 plus 56, and all of a sudden, you got over 100K of transferring information. We thought we were screaming.
Mind blown.
Well, but back in 1995, that was like black magic.
It was. But though, you got to remember the data was so much smaller for programs and websites back then, too.
Pre-multimedia, yeah. But I mean, back then, our most of our solid state. I mean, I remember mid-90s, a big hard drive, at least on the commercial market, was like a couple hundred megabytes.
Wow, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought I had found a way to beat the system when me and my dad homebrewed a computer together, and we stuck two 300 megabyte hard drives in it.
Yes.
That was like cooking with gas right there. And now I tell this to people today, and they're like 600 megabytes? Like my watch has 600 megabytes of storage.
Right.
Well,
anyway,
I remember when I remember just really quick that like growing up, my dad, it was amazed like when we had the floppy disks, like that was the biggest thing, and then all of a sudden the the zip drives came out.
Oh
yes,
those came. My dad, and my dad, he'd always go and buy stacks of them for information, and I don't even know what he's got out of them anymore. Well, then he sat there, and then I remember when like the little SD drives come out, and it was like, here's a whole whopping 6 megs of external storage and for $50. And then now you look at them, and you're like, holy crap, they're so cheap. It's crazy how things progress. And I mean, that kind of ties into just how the internet has progressed. And I guess that kind of leads into kind of what you were talking about at Prepper Camp. It was basically like cybersecurity, information security. And you really, now, how long have you been in that? Were you in that while in the banking industry, or was that something that you got into after? Or?
Well, I learned a lot about it when we created the red and blue team at the bank. I wasn't an expert at it in the beginning, but through the years, we had so many regulations that the government, put on us as this new technology was being created. I remember creating the very first real-time credit card application where you could actually go on to our site, fill out the information, and in real time we would go check your credit and to provide you a yes or no if you got accepted. We didn't tell you how much you got accepted for. We just said, yes, you are approved. That was the first credit card connection to someone's actual credit score ever done. That took an act of Congress to get that passed and to get that through all the hurdles within the bank and the government. Things are changed so much, though. It's just crazy. But so through that, I learned that I learned a lot of that just from the aspect of protecting people's data. Then, since then, over the last 20 years, I've been training and learning how to protect my data, my information, and how to, from everyone, even nation states to my neighbor with his Wi-Fi detection system. Privacy is something that is real, but you have to go get it. It's not something that you automatically get. You have to go and work for your privacy. And that is kind of a campaign I've been on for the last few years, is the more we use the tools that are created, including, Tor, including Tails operating system, all these tools that are created, the more we use that, the more we get our privacy back.
I see. Yeah, because I remember, I don't want to give too much away from your talk at Prepper Camp. Are you talking again at Prepper Camp this year?
I am. I think I'm going to be focusing more on groups. I'm not sure what I'm going to be talking about, to be honest with you. But yes, I'm invited back.
Okay.
Well, good. I didn't screw up.
Phil and I have our tickets again, so we'll be there again.
Yeah. Found my notes from your seminar, by the way.
Hey, what was that first line? He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's what I read.
No, actually, the very top of this is another instructor that I'm not going to put on blast, but I'm not going to take his class again.
Okay.
No, but so going off of your class in 2018, Prepper Camp. I mean, you really talked. I mean, you talked about so much. My mind was. I actually just found my packet from it was buried under, somehow got kicked under my bed, and so I have a disc that you gave me actually, with some software and stuff that I need to try out, and so like going into like let's cover the privacy. I remember from your class you really talked about, if you really want privacy, like you laugh at people who talk about, I want to get more privacy, and then they have things like Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo Mail, or I said Hotmail, but like you laugh at people they say want privacy, but then like Google is like one of the worst. They spy on you more, like just as much, if not as more, as Facebook. And so if somebody really wants to get out there and say, hey, I want to secure my emails, like what would you recommend? I mean, I remember in your class you said basically you just got to pay for it. You got to find one that you pay for.
Right. So if you use any free type email service, you are the consumer. I mean, you are the customer. I mean, consumer. They're using your data to advertise to you, and they're selling your information. I mean, they tell you they don't, but everyone knows that your information, everyone's seen when you go and search a website, all of a sudden you get emails about that product, or and that continues on. It's like one big web of they share information. And they do that through several companies like ClickBank. They set a cookie on your browser. Google, they control the searches. They know what you search. And so, you'll get the ads. But the only way to be private on your email is use a paid email, and Unseen is one. I personally like Proton Mail, and I pay for it. And it's in a different country. Matter of fact, Proton Mail, when you send an encrypted message, the message is not stored anywhere where it can be decrypted. It's not even stored. The key is not even on the server. Only time that it is decrypted is when your key from your username and password logs in, and all of a sudden it can decrypt the message and you can see it. So let's just say Russia, because the United States would never do this. Let's say Russia goes to the server in the other country and grabs the physical server and then takes it back. It would almost be impossible. They could probably do it. I would say there's very few nation states that could do that. Decrypt your email. They would spend so many resources. It would just be not prudent for them to do it. So I love Proton Mail. It costs money. I think I got it for like 2 years. Was like $80. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, because right now I'm looking at it, and there is a free version, but I assume the free version is something just like.
Absolutely.
Is it just like email, or is it just as good?
Yes, you can use Proton free version. Absolutely. There's some limits, meaning I think it's, I don't know, 10, maybe 5 gigs or something. I don't know. It's just a few limits. I used that for years until I started preaching about this, and I'm like, you know what? I need to get the paid version if I'm going to, actually, I want to step up my game a little bit, because there's benefits. You can create more than one email address when you upgrade as well. Hey, let's take a quick break.
Are you a prepper or homesteader looking to connect with like-minded people in your area? Looking to start your own preparedness group? Already have a group? Well, look no further than PrepperNet. PrepperNet is dedicated to personal responsibility, individual freedoms, and being self-reliant. PrepperNet has monthly meetings in over 100 cities where you can meet and learn with like-minded people in your area. PrepperNet, where preppers unite. Find us online at preppernet.com.
Right, and I believe it looks like it's €4 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, €4 a month, so $4.59, roughly $4.59 US a month, which isn't really that bad. And that's interesting. Yeah, that's for the Plus version. But no, that's interesting.
I do have other email accounts. I do have a Gmail account, but I use that for communication. I use that for communication, like I would talk in public, because that's what email is communicating in public where everyone in the world could possibly hear you. So when I run my website, depending on what is being communicated, it depends on what email address I use, because that's just, and it is hard. There's a graph, if you can imagine. The more privacy you want, the more difficult it's going to be for you. The less privacy, the easier.
Now, I know and then going into search browsers, I know you said in the class it was Firefox is your go-to, and you said it's probably the most secure.
Well, Tor, the Onion
browser.
Tor browser is probably the better one, but it's so difficult to use. But Firefox, the reason anything open source I like. Source hackers nowadays, there are ethical hackers that their dream is to find issues with open source code, because if they find an issue with open source, that means other hackers, other programmers have looked at it and never found a flaw. So they work diligently to find issues with open source, and when they do, they make a name for themselves. So if you can imagine, Firefox is open source. Everyone in the world can look at the actual code, and they check each other. It's like checks and balances. They'll improve it to the point that it becomes almost just hardened. And with the right plugins that you can install, Firefox is probably the safest browser you can use, most secure. Do not use Internet Explorer, which I don't even know if they make that anymore. But
They do.
do not use. They do. Do not use Internet Explorer. It's part of the operating system with Microsoft. It was forever. And Google Chrome. Are you kidding? I mean, it's probably the most flexible because Google has created it. But Google, again, you don't want to use anything mainstream like Google. You want to use Firefox. There's some other ones out there that are coming up.
Opera.
What'd you say?
Opera.
Yeah, it's just so far behind Firefox. I would recommend Firefox, and with a few plugins like HTTP Anywhere. I think that's it. HTTP Anywhere. It makes every socket, when you connect to a website, it transmits it in securely. It helps. You also want to add you can actually, the coolest thing with Firefox and some of these other browsers, you can add there's called no ads or a plugin. What'd you call it?
Ad blocker.
Yeah, ad blocker. It blocks all the ads. It's amazing, and they don't track you. And so, I'm a big fan. But have been a fan since Mozilla and Netscape. Same browser did it.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes.
So wait a second. Firefox is basically a repackaged Netscape?
Yes, Netscape from the old days. Then it became Mozilla, and then it became Firefox.
See, I never even realized that. But I mean, I remember Netscape from back in the day.
Yeah. Yep. So in Netscape, they went defunct, and the guys grabbed it and started working on it and made it Mozilla. Matter of fact, in the beginning, it was called Netscape Mozilla, and now it's gone to Firefox.
Interesting. Now, as far as I mean, this is getting a little bit more advanced just because of the fact of not many people know how to go this in depth. But for those who want to learn operating systems, for the longest time, Linux has been the one that
Yes.
I've heard go to, and that's what you recommend.
I love Linux, absolutely. Once you learn the Linux, it is actually it's no different than Windows. It's a Windows-based operating system, but it has none of the complexity that Windows has, and again, true programmers and hackers have, in a sense, put their 2 cents into this software, and it's just been growing and getting better ever since. There's another version of things, and it's called Tails, which again, that's even more difficult to use, but it's probably Linux gives you freedom to do a lot more adjustments than Tails, because Linux it was programmed by experts, hackers, and programmers, and by far it's the safest in the market without question. Tails is for the simple people. It's hard to use and get, but once you get it, it's just simple, has absolutely no added features. I mean, it's just the basics.
Oh wow, just the bare bones and
Bare
that's
bones.
My biggest issue with Windows, and I mean, even just look at cell phones too. The operating system. I wish I need to figure out a way to do just a more simpler version on my cell phone, just because the fact of you got so much stuff running in the background,
Right.
that it just slows everything down. And then on top of that, because there's so many programs run in the background that you don't even know. It's insane. Like what runs in the background, and you have no idea it's running.
Right. Yep. Now I do currently have an iPhone. That's because of work, but iPhone is not a safe phone. Actually, none of the phones are safe. But a Droid can be made safer than an iPhone. If you remember the documents that came out in Vault 7, that was a release of documents that a hacker or a government employee kind of released, or I don't know who it was, but we learned from the documents that iPhones straight out of the box can be taken over by the government.
Huh.
I mean, that it was factory sealed in a box that had a back door. So,
well, I'm glad I never went to iPhone.
Yeah. And so that eliminates, some of the software I use on my phone. And I was telling people about, like Signal, which is a video texting and voice communications on any device. But if someone has control of your phone, they can see your screen. And so, but again, for them to do that, you would have to be they would have to suspect something pretty crazy, because it's not easy for them, but yet they do have the ability.
Just crazy. It makes me want to go back to just a flip phone.
Flip phone, BlackBerry.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Buy Blackberries anymore?
Yeah,
they do. Yeah.
I thought RIM went head under. Sorry.
No, they're actually coming out the new BlackBerry soon, I believe.
Yeah, but the old flip phones, or even the big bricks, used to hold up to your ear.
Yeah.
No cameras.
Now, Garvin, I do have kind of a question that's in the same vein, but it's not personal, but it's going to be very personal to what the three of us do, because, like I was telling Andrew, I'm like, the thing that I've personally struggled with, I know Andrew has, because we're podcasters, all three of us are, because all three of us kind of have a public persona, and there's X amount of our information, our X amount of what we do and what we believe is already out in the public eye because of what we do. How does anybody strike a balance between privacy and the modern age where we're all on social media and we're all trading information back and forth? I mean, that's something I've struggled with, and Andrew has too, and it's something that even applies to a lot of our listeners, because they're on social media, they talk with us all the time with each other, but at the same time, we also kind of wonder how close to our chest to hold the cards.
Right. So when I tell people, when I came out of the closet, this was 6 years ago. None of my friends and family, no one knew that I was, NRE instructor, all these things, that I did the training, that I had a survival group. I mean, no one knew that. And that's kind of why I started, putting meetups together, because I needed to meet people. And also, coming from a background in the area of Charlotte, I knew I couldn't hide my identity. People knew who I was. I was in the papers. I just was pretty known in this area, in the banking industry in the Southeast at the time, just because of my job. And so I couldn't come up with these cool names and and like an entire profile that kind of hid my identity. So I knew I would have to put myself out there, and I have. The question is, though, me being kind of out there, what am I hiding from? Who am I hiding from? What do I have to hide? And once you take an assessment of that, I have nothing to hide except maybe my survival group, which I talk a lot about my survival group, and a lot of people give me flack for that. And the reason I talk about it is because it's been in existence for 20 years. This will be the 20th year. We have our stuff down. We understand security. I understand what I can share and what I can't share. I know people, even having my ham license, I made the mistake of putting like my home address so people can find out where I am. Actually, I've moved since then. I haven't updated my address yet, but people can you give me your name and I can find out any information about you within 10 minutes. I can find your social security. I can find your brother-in-law, everything. So with that information out there, I know that my secret life is my survival group. I know when the crap hits the fan, I'm gone. If you follow me, it's going to be bad news. You won't. And everyone always says, "Hey, I'll just come to your house." I say, "Great, y'all have a party," because I won't be there. I won't be there because two things. We are in this industry. We're prepping. We've done this for a while. We know the signs to look for, and we will be the first one to bug out. By the time people figure out they need to come to my house, it'll be a day, 24 hours, or maybe even 48 hours before they even think about it, and I'll be gone. So when you're truly prepped, and I know this is a little side road, I'm sorry, but when you're truly prepped and the crap hits the fan, you don't need to go back to your house. I live in the city. Now, if you're at your bug out location, that's different. But there's no reason for me to go back to my house. Leave my dog there, that's fine. My neighbor will get him. My family members, we know what to do, and that's called truly prepared. Do I need books, binders, anything, food, guns from my house? No. I told my neighbors, you guys can have it. But the privacy is the only way to truly take your privacy back is get rid of the phone, get rid of your computer, and get off the grid. Because outside my house right now is this meter, and it's called a smart meter that the power company put on there. And the technology is so good, they know when I plug in my phone to be charged. That information, they found that out in the 40s and 50s by the draw of current. They can identify what was being plugged in. When my TV's on, they can tell by the frequencies coming from my house from that smart meter, my TV's on. They can literally record everything, all of my electronic uses or electricity uses, in a sense, in my house. They know that. And that was done, and that's pretty public, where they put this guy in a room, and he was going to type a top secret letter. And the goal was to figure out what the guy was typing in this lead room. And they did it by the electrical current. Each typewriter key would hit, the old, you remember the old typewriters?
Right.
I think that was in the 50s they did this, maybe it was early 60s. And as the key was drawn and hit, they could tell the current and then identify what key it was. And that's over 50 years ago they could do that.
Yeah, that technology is definitely leaps and bounds past that. I mean, completely go private. Yeah, you do have to go off grid, ditch your phone, ditch your computer, everything. And I mean, 90% of the people, a good chunk of the people, they can't do that. I mean, so the next step to start though is to just be smarter about your browsing, like your browser, such as a better browser like Firefox, better email, like the Proton, and get familiar with like Firefox or something like that, just to kind of help secure your identity a little bit more.
And create some fake profiles. There's no law that states that you can't use a fake profile online when you're buying something. They don't have to ask you for your information. Matter of fact, so create a fake profile and then use that fake profile as you do on your boards. Have it go to an email address and then forward it to your Proton mail address. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. It's pretty easy too. A lot of this stuff's on YouTube University. But another thing to do is when you buy stuff, I use a company called privacy.com. So I can go to privacy.com and I can create a credit card number on the fly. So then I can go.
I've heard.
Yeah. So I can create a credit card number. It gives me, the expiration date. I can create my own expiration date on there, and the 3D pin. And then I can go to a website and I can put in any name I want, John Smith, at this P.O. box or this, wherever it's going to be shipped, and then put my credit card information, which will link up to the name I just put in. Mm-hmm. And then I can purchase that completely 100% anonymously. Then
they trace that back though. From if you want to trace that credit card number back, they can't trace it back to your account and then your basically your credit card number.
The only way they could do that is possibly if they get a subpoena and go back, and the government would do that. Anyone else would never be able to figure that out, because that credit card number is temporarily used, and once it's used, it's gone forever. And so they would have to either see you as you're picking up your package from the P.O. box or from wherever you're going to mail it to, or they'd have to go seize the records and the computers of privacy.com, and then go through their encryption to get that information to get it. And again, it would.
Well, privacy is also it's encrypted pretty good too.
Yes, very encrypted. A nation state is probably the only people that can do that at this point. They're the only ones that have the money and the resources to even attempt to do that. So you can go out and buy things anonymous all throughout the internet and have it shipped to anonymous location, which there's ways to do that. And all of a sudden, the government is not really tracking you because, again, they don't have the resources or the time to spend on some guy, named Forrest buying ammo from, an online store.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get really wacky, you can go to the dark web or to the Tor network. And I tell people, everyone says, "Oh, that network is compromised. It's compromised." And the Computer Guy, which is a great guy on YouTube, has lots of followers. And I say, that's horse crap. It is not compromised. You know why and how I know? They spent over $100 million trying to figure out the Silk Roads. It was the largest drug trafficking, sex trafficking, organization market in the world. And they spent $100 million and they couldn't do it. They almost gave up until the founder of the entire thing used a username offline, meaning off the, in a game. I don't know if it was a gaming or something. He used the same username, and it brought their attention going, wait a second, this is the same username that we see sometimes on the Silk Road. And boom, they got him. Other than that, they could not crack or find who was doing that. And so it's not a compromised system yet, I don't think. But
that's crazy. Yeah, I guess how do you feel about? I mean, you talk about having something shipped to anonymous locations. Basically, you talk. I mean, I guess you can have if you have other addresses or something. But I mean, what do you think about getting a post box at the postal service? I mean, is that something that you would recommend?
Well, I wouldn't do the post office. I would do like one of these other mailbox rentals.
Okay.
So what you can do, I know PostNet is one of them. They have these mailboxes you can rent by the month, and you can go in there with a. Well, I've heard, okay, that you can go in there with some LLC documentation of a LLC that may not exist. This is what I've heard and read. And just fill out the paperwork, and they'll give you a box and a key. And as far as they know, that particular LLC owns that box. These are the names that could come in that you put down. And if you don't know them and they don't have cameras, that's pretty secure.
Yeah. Same.
I personally have never done that, but I can imagine, and I know someone that owns a PostNet, and I've asked the questions though, and he said that they're supposed to verify, but most of them don't. They just want your money.
Well, sadly, I don't have a PostNet near me.
Oh, okay. Well, there are other ones too. Anyone that rents mailboxes, every city has one, or I just don't know the different names. And then you could do. I've seen people order stuff when they know their neighbors are going to be out of town, and they'll go snag their own package.
Nice.
There's different ways you can do that, and paying a UPS driver extra money when your package comes, And I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. But what are you trying to hide? I mean,
right. That's the thing is, it's mostly I see the thing I find the most intriguing. It would be like the privacy, privacy.com.
right.
Doing something like that, because one of the biggest things that gets stolen online is our identity, as far as our credit card information. A lot of that gets stolen from online, but I mean, it's actually, from what I read, a couple years ago, I read it, that it's actually safer to shop online than it is to actually shop in person now. But I don't. I mean, but it's what? But
Well, I don't really. I freeze your credit report. It's free to do. You can go on the site and you can freeze it. That means any new applications, if someone's trying to get a credit card in your name, it would freeze it. Other than that, I'm really less concerned about someone stealing my credit card than I am someone trying to hack one of my passwords to a website. And here's the reason why. Let's say I had a $100,000 credit line on my credit card or in my bank, which I don't. But if someone steals that and uses that, the bank's going to refund all my money, every bit of it. They're on the hook for all that. The reason why, because they have to keep the system and they have to keep I mean, you've heard of people, they always get their money back. It's a bank policy to refund someone's money. Even PayPal does it. PayPal is a little bit safer with the credit cards than the bank, but you always get your money back. So one thing I do recommend, every year, go to your bank online and say, hey, I want new credit cards issued. They'll give you a brand new number. And that helps in two ways. One is you got a new number. And two, all them subscription accounts you forgot that you subscribed for and they're going to charge you again this year, it's going to bounce and you're going to go, oh, I forgot I did want that, when you can go in there with your new credit card information. Because I forget sometimes. But so the credit card, but the most important thing you can do is, one, get a good email service, one you pay for, and then your password. If I know your password to your email, I can control your life for a period of time. I can get into your bank accounts. I can get into every account that you have if I know your email password. And the way I would do that is I would go to Bank of America and say, hey, I've lost my username. What's your email address?
Email it to you.
They're going to email it, and then I have full control of your bank account or your airline mile account. Whatever it is, your email password is the most important password.
Right. And that's what I mean.
Your email is the most important thing.
Yes.
Yeah, having like a secured email though. I mean, you can run all your bills. You can run everything through it, correct? I mean,
yes.
Any email from. So, I guess, I mean, if I emailed somebody at Gmail, I guess that kind of defeats the purpose of the secure email, unless it's just something out of the blue. But,
so
yeah, I can definitely see how that's beneficial.
So I do use email for like my Amazon account. It's just, again, it's a scale. The more privacy, the more difficult. My Proton Mail accounts, I really use that for information that I really want protected. So I would not email you at your Gmail account from a Proton Mail. If you don't have a secure email, I probably wouldn't email you from that account because it defeats the purpose.
Right.
Being in the position I am, and I do a lot of consulting with some survival groups, we'll say, and some high-profile people. I require them to have a Proton Mail so we can communicate, so that that information is 100% protected.
I see. Okay. Well, actually, that's a good segue there. Let's talk a little bit about prepping. Your prepping groups. You have the Prepping Academy, and then you also have PrepperNet, which I've been looking at that, and I've been looking into that more. So can you talk a little bit about both?
Yes, well, Prepping Academy is nothing more than my podcast. I call it a mediocre podcast because it's just mediocre. I interview some of the biggest names. It's kind of when I go in there and talk by myself or my co-host, everyone goes, "Yeah, that's pretty good." But apparently, I'm better at interviewing than I am talking. So, so I've been interviewing a lot more people here recently. But that's all that is Prepping Academy. That's getting ready to. We're going to change that over to a new network. We're doing some major changes on that I'm not really ready to announce yet. But it's going to keep listening because things are going to get better. It's going to become more professional. And when it comes, go ahead. You got a question?
No, I was just saying that PrepperNet.
Yeah, and PrepperNet. So PrepperNet started 5 years ago when I wanted to meet other people. My best friend was, see if I can remember this. It was AK-47NC18. That was my best prepper friend I ever had. And I knew him from a forum.
Nice.
Never met him in person. We just communicated and shared ideas and thoughts. And I finally said, I got to meet other people. And so I created a meetup, and we had 5 people the first meetup. And I named it the Carolina Prepping Network. And it grew to over about 9,000 people with meetings in 21 cities. So I find a city leader and go, "Hey, you need to do this too. I'll help you and train you how I've done mine." And we did that in 21 cities in the Carolinas. Since then, we went national because I was helping I went to prepper camp and people were like, "Hey, can you help me do this in Ohio? Can you help me do this in Washington State?" And so I renamed it and rebranded it to PrepperNet. Currently, we have over 25,000 members, and we have meetups in officially 47 cities, but we're working on like 12 right now to add. Last night we added Eugene, Oregon. A existing meetup group said, "Hey, we want to be a part of what PrepperNet's doing," and they came on board, brought 1,000 people, from their meetup. So, and so some neat things that we're doing. First of all, I needed help, so I went out and got some of the biggest names I could find in the industry to help me do this. And I hope you guys will know some of these names, but I got a list right. John Jacob Schmidt from Amron. He's built an emergency communication network for preppers, and it's been in existence for years. There's no better emergency communication tool and policy and procedures than what they've put together. I've got Scott Hunt from Practical Preppers. You guys know who he is.
I know the name.
Yep, Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy, Charlie Hogwood. He wrote the book, the MAG Group or Survival Group. He wrote that book. Glenn Tate and Shirley Gallagher. Glenn Tate wrote the 299 Days, and Shirley is an author as well. Samuel Kopler, he does the Forward Observer. He does Intel. He did Intel for, I think, the 3 Percenters. He did it for the Oath Keepers. Very smart guy. Then there's, these guys. I know Survivor Jane.
Yep. We just had Rick Austin on last week, and I'm actually just fell back from Survivor Jane, so we'll be having her on soon.
Yep. So they're both on my expert camp. You probably know Franklin Horton.
Yep. He's been about 3 times now.
Yeah.
Yep. And Ryan Mitchell, a lot of people don't know who this is, but he is the tiny house expert.
Yep, he was on. Yep, we had him on too. Him and Brian Duff.
Yep, Brian Duff. Brian Duff is on there as well. So you guys know. I mean, that's my expert. So these guys are helping me. Unite Preppers is our tagline. We have created a website where we want every prepper in America to come and join, and we want you to give us your zip code. Ooh, so check this out. In my personal survival group, we have a young lady that is going to the University of Alabama. I don't know anyone near that university that's a prepper. And so if the crap hits the fan, that's a real problem. How do we communicate with this young lady? How do we make sure she's safe? It was a problem. And so expanding out PrepperNet to nationwide all of a sudden gave me an idea. Everyone that joins PrepperNet, you give me your zip. So now there's 15 people within 30 miles of the university that I have in the database. So I went and emailed them and said, hey, would you be interested? And I tell them the story. And I had like 4 or 5 people go, oh, yeah. Since then, the families have met and they've trusted. Now we have a safe passage or someone that will take care of this young lady if the crap hits the fan, and a way to communicate with her. Because if that didn't happen, this couple and their kids at a retreat, all they would do is worry about their daughter. It would affect my group. It would hinder them from doing the things that they need to do to keep everyone else safe. So it was vital to have communications and a plan for that young lady. For me too, not just for them. So now the software is completed. I haven't released it yet, but you can go on and you can look at a zip code and go, okay, who is in this zip code? You don't get to see their names. You don't get to see their email addresses. You'll bring up a zip code. It'll say there are 23 people in this zip code that are a member of this site. It will randomly select 10 people, and you can type them a message. Hey, my name is Joe Smith. My email address is this. My phone number is this. My parents live there, and I'm trying to get someone that understands what prepping and survival and all this stuff. So if something happens, I can communicate and know that there's someone there that could possibly take care of my family. If you're interested, email me back. You have my information. So that email then is sent to 10 random people in that zip code, and then you sit back and see if someone responds. So one, it doesn't give away the identity of anyone unless you take the action and respond to the email. You could just delete it and your information is never shared. You would actually physically have to reply to the mail or call them and say, hey, my name is Tom. I'm interested in helping. What's going on? And then all of a sudden you've got a connection. So there's ways to connect to people with everyone within the United States without them giving their information up. And it's entirely up to them. So I've created that software and it is working. Also, I've limited the number of times you can use it. You can only use it one zip code in a 24-hour period. So you just can't spam. You're going to have to be patient. If there's a bunch of zip codes, you're going to have to be patient. And then after you use it 5 times within a 10-day period, it puts you on, it freezes your account, and then I'll have to go in there and find out why you're trying to get more zip codes.
Well, it also helps keep bots at bay because you couldn't brute force. You can't brute force survey the database that way.
Exactly.
At least not with one username.
And that's another point I want to bring up. And so as people sign up for PrepperNet, their information goes into a database. It's a SQL database. I have it's a cron job. They call it. That's all technical talk, I know, but that goes into the database and it gets the zip codes and it gets their email address and it encrypts their email address and builds a brand new database. So then the zip codes are then taken out of that database into a flat file, which is then sent to Google, builds it on a map and shows a PrepperNet symbol in every single zip code in the United States where there is at least one member in that zip code. So if you go, then you can look on a map and you can see on a map where all the zip codes, where at least we have at least one member in that zip code. You can view that in real time. And you can go, oh, look, there's someone right there in Biloxi, Mississippi, or at least one person. It could be 10, it could be 30, but I only represent it with one. And then that's how you know if someone's in that area or not. and it's completely hidden. The only information Google gets is the zip codes. They don't know. They don't ever see the usernames, passwords, email addresses, or anything. So it wasn't a difficult software program to work to get done, but it was one that I just wanted to think through and make sure that everyone's data was always secure. You can view on a map so if you go on a map right now, you have to be a member though. You do have to be a paying member to see this. We have 2 membership levels, a basic membership, and then we have a premium membership. And the premium membership is $40 a year, but it gives you access to see every single zip code represented by PrepperNet. And it's pretty impressive when you see the map of the United States.
Jeez. Yeah. Well, I guess I have a couple things to sign up for here soon.
You're spending Andrew's money, in other words.
Yeah. Well, I don't mean to be, but it's just that, and the main purpose of PrepperNet is to create an environment in all the cities in America that we can get to, where you go and you break bread, you eat across from people, and you get to know them. The information that happens at our meetups, because we'll have training, we'll have this week I'm doing one on winter preps. People are starting doing the bees because of the spring coming. That information though is YouTube has it all. So we have a complete program to train our city leaders. So we have forums for them to communicate, just the city leaders. We have a monthly conference call for our city leaders. We have a Google Drive where we can share presentations, videos, handouts that everyone's put together. We have a marketing plan for our city leaders. So not only how to get more people into your group, but also how to make money at it. Because I do charge a city leader $100 to come on board, and I show them like 4 ways to make money being a city leader and running a group, and the benefits are unbelievable because you get to handpick people for your survival group too, and so there's some great benefits. But we have all this information to train our city leaders, and then once a month, one of our expert panel members will get on the phone and say, "Hey guys, you guys are doing a great job. Hey, this is coming down the line, or have you thought about doing this with your group?" Or hey, and so we're here to help the city leaders and help them facilitate running groups throughout the United States. And so that's our main purpose, is getting people across the table to meet each other. And yes, you can come into one of our meetups and have the name Batman, and we won't ask you your real name. I mean, you can come in. We have so many people that have all these cool names. I wish I could come up with one, but for myself. But everybody says someone has to give it to you. I'm like, oh, okay. You don't want to hear them. They're not. But
yeah, I mean, I can definitely find this very interesting, and just I can find it very useful, just because I mean, as preppers and everything, I mean, you have a hard time finding like-minded individuals. They kind of keep it close to them. It's one thing that they don't necessarily like to let out, and so like something like this, it gives you the ability to it's almost like an icebreaker in a way. And it just lets you kind of just, hey, this is who I am, and you want to meet up, and because that's, I mean, where I'm at, I don't know of anybody really else. I mean, I know like my uncle and everything, but other than that, like I really don't have other people that I consider that I've met that are preppers. I just can't. They're harder to find up here, I guess. I don't know. So I mean, that's something that's be very interesting to look into as far as if join the PrepperNet, finding out if there's anybody up here.
So here's one of the statements I make all the time, and this is 20 years of experience in helping groups and my group. If you're not in a group, when the crap hits the fan, you're going to die, and you're going to die quickly. You've got to be in a group. And people always, the next question from that statement is, well, how many people need to be in your group? Charlie, which wrote the book, Jonathan Hollerman, which is We Think Just Alike, expert. I've actually had roundtable discussions with experts. Sam Kopler. The bigger the group, almost the better. I like to go with 20 families, and people go, "What? That's 100 people at your retreat?" And I go, "Yes, and you're going to wish you had more." Because imagine doing 24-hour security forever from that point on. Mm-hmm. And so you have, 8 guys on the first shift, 8 guys on the second shift. That's 16 people just doing 12-hour security for your retreat. There's other work that needs to be done. And so it's peaceful now. It is absolutely, you can buy the materials you need. You can do it right now. But once things start to fall, it's going to be too late. And if people in your survival group, it's like a marriage. It's actually almost more important than a marriage. It's not more important than a marriage, but you got to trust these people with your life, with your daughter, and your wife. Because you're going to be on security, and there'll be people back in the camp. You've got to think through this. And a lot of people, Glenn Tate and Shirley Gallagher, have their new podcast. It's called Prepping 2.0. Yeah, and it's taken your game to the next level. If you're still talking about building fires, and your bug out bag, and you're talking about, we're past. Gosh, I learned that stuff 15 years ago. I don't even ever talk about that stuff within my my group. Matter of fact, this one on winter preps, it was the main concern everyone had this winter, but I'm not going to talk about probably what they want me to talk about. I'm going to talk about winter is a natural disaster that happens every single year. It is a natural disaster that happens every single year. We just happen to have a prep called electricity that gets us through it. So if we had no electricity this winter, a third of America would die.
Conservatively speaking.
Yes. And so our prep, thanks, to power and electricity, but if we had no power, people would be dying by the millions in America.
But we talk about the same thing. I live down here in the New Orleans metro area. Not in the city, thank God, but close enough to it. And we talk about the same thing in the summer because it's like 90 to 100 degrees and 90% relative humidity. And when the power gets knocked out for an extended period of time in the summer, you start hearing about like the elderly and people who have heat strokes sitting in their houses because it's 100 freaking degrees.
Yep.
Now that probably sounds really hilarious to some of y'all that don't live down here, but trust me when I say it's freaking hot, like properly hot. But the point remains.
Yep. So, but yeah, and so you got to be in a group, and you got to have skills. If you have no skills, you have no value. And that's so. PrepperNet is nationwide. When we ask everyone to join, it's free, and it does. It gives you opportunity to find meetups. There's all kinds. We have a national Zello night that actually is going to happen tonight at 8:00. We'll have 50, 60, 80, 100 people check in on the Zello net. So we have all kinds of cool things and a lot of great leaders. Is the only way I could pull this off is we have some very committed people that are helping me. And we have a Facebook page at PrepperNet. I think it's facebook.com/group/PrepperNet. And there's always great information on there and communications.
So if I'm reading Andrew's face correctly, we're both probably joining this evening. Did I get that right, Andrew?
Yeah.
Well, don't join yet. I'll give you guys a free membership if you guys just help me. You guys probably know this. In your podcast, I make no money. In PrepperNet, I charge, but I've spent over $20,000 to get the website and the back end to where it is now. My only goal with the $40 is to make up my money, and charging every time I start a new group, it costs me, $180 a year for a meetup group. And so I know that I'm not, a lot of people go, you're making money, you're charging $40. And I'm like, kiss my honey, go somewhere else. You would be supporting kind of what we're doing, but I'll give you guys jump on board, and I would love to give you guys a free membership.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, I definitely appreciate it. I don't mind paying for it either. I mean, but it just because the idea of just being networked, the whole networking, and I mean, this is something that when we definitely will be pushing this on our page and stuff, and trying to get, if there's people that aren't members, trying to get them signed up as well, just because I think this is a valuable source to have, just so you know who's who, and I mean, it just gives you a good idea of who's in your area. I mean, just like what you said, and just like when you described, that girl that you basically created a network for her, because she was at college. Like Franklin Horton, his book popped into my mind. That's exactly what, and like that right there, like so valuable. I mean, I only live 2 hours away from where I would go, but that's still a 2-hour drive. Right. If I can find someone in between here and there, or team, or link up with a group of people from between here and there, then that just adds so much more security, and it ups your survivability just by tenfold. I mean, by how many people you have in your group, and especially if you have to camp outside. If you have to take a sleep outside and out in the woods, and you're by yourself. I mean, you're putting yourself at risk, and so. Yeah, my mind is just blown. I mean,
yeah. Okay, imagine one other thing with me, if you can jump on board this. Imagine a network, let's say the grid goes down, a network of ham operators that are prepared for a grid down, that can send messages pretty much to every nook and cranny in America. And they're using the Amron OSI, and at that point we'll be able to encrypt it, and we'll be able to get the message to anywhere in America using Amron's OSI, using PrepperNet ham operators throughout the United States, because we're everywhere. And all of a sudden,
I'm a ham operator. I have my license. I need to get back to it. I haven't touched my radio in years, so I need to pick it back up and get back into it. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, it just, there's so many tools. And I mean, I guess going off of what you were saying with, as far as you're doing this, like you created PrepperNet to bring like-minded individuals together and teach. Like you're a teacher. You want to instruct people on how to survive something if something or whatever happened. And Phil and I, that's where, when him and I really talked about when I first started coming on the show, and that's we're really the same way, as we're thinking the same way as Phil and I do the show not for money. I mean, if we had 100 Patreons and everybody subscribed and we were making like something that we could actually live off of, I mean, we wouldn't be like living high off the hog. We would be investing that money back in the show and making it a better show. But also bringing on, trying to get more guests and trying to get more material and try to teach people, because I'm doing this show for teaching. Like, if I don't know something, I want someone to tell me. But I mean, I've read articles, I've talked to a lot of people, and I do have somewhat of more some common sense to where this doesn't add up. I'm going to tell you, and I feel like people need to hear that. Yes,
absolutely. There's going to come a day, and I don't look forward to this day, but there's going to become a day that my website's going to crash because of a number of people trying to join because they need the information. They see what's going on. There's going to be a day that you're going to get 10,000 downloads in one day of your podcast, because people are going to be people are going to be craving. The world is getting ready to go through some major changes. I'm not going to get too spiritual or theological here, but we're getting ready to go through some changes, and it's been predicted for 3,000 years, and there's nothing we can do and to stop it. And that's why we need good teachers and a infrastructure to help people when they need that help. And that's what you guys providing, that tool, and hopefully PrepperNet will be as well.
Yeah, I mean that's why we look for individuals like yourself to come on and just kind of. I mean, you talked about so much stuff that I'm going to look more into it, and it's something that I want to look more into it, and I want to spread to other people as far as family and friends and stuff like that. Because if I can help someone secure their privacy a little bit better just by saying, "Hey, get this email or get this browser," then I've completed what I set out to do, and that's to help somebody, to help somebody and to make their life a little bit more secure. And I mean, and that's where to me is it helps make your life a little bit more secure. That's why when people laugh at me about, hey, you're a prepper, and they laugh at me,
Right.
I'm okay. You can laugh at me, but when something happens, don't come to me when your kid's starving because I'm not going to help you. Like we're going to have words when that happens because I told you multiple times that you should be doing this, and you just kind of laughed at me, and now we're like, nah. Bye.
So I'm bringing two more people on my expert panel. One is a cyber genius because I know how important that is, and he's already agreed, but to come on. And then I'm also bringing on, oddly enough, a chaplain. And the guy I have in mind, the guy that has agreed to do it, he's a name everyone would know, but he's getting through some family issues right now, and then that'll be announced probably within the next 30 days to 60 days. So,
Nice.
But you say that's odd, and honestly, I don't, because I mean, we had an episode with Brian Duff, month ago, Andrew, and we talked. We talked about like post-traumatic stress disorder. We talked about the effects of emergency situations and psychological trauma and the emotional distress. So I mean, I think honestly, like chaplain psychologist, that's probably a good person to put into a group because if you think, and I mean, from my own experience, my genesis for prepping was Hurricane Katrina because I was in the Louisiana Guard and I saw it pretty close up, and I tell people to this day, I'm like, I know people who never had a shot fired at them in anger who have, honest to God, diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder because they spent 3 days sitting on their roof waiting to die with the floodwaters up around them.
Right.
And I've met people like that. I mean, and if you think you're going to go through any kind of major disaster, whether it's man-made, political, natural, if it's a situation where your life's in danger, somebody is going to have a little bit of a healing process go on afterwards.
Absolutely, yep. Couldn't agree more. It's hard to deal with your problems yourself, and it doesn't make you any less of a man by talking through with a chaplain or someone that can help you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm not the most spiritual person out there, but somebody to talk to, such as a chaplain, and they do have good insight, and they would have good feedback. I mean, it's someone to talk to is the most thing, and they're relatively someone you can trust.
Right.
So I'm all for that. That's awesome. Holy crap, Forrest. Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to start wrapping it up. When you get things situated with, you said that you're kind of revamping the Prepping Academy. You're kind of doing different things with it. Once you get some things figured out and get some things rolling, I mean, you're more than welcome to come back on anytime.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to come on and talk about that, or if you want to come on and just BS, you're more than welcome. And I mean, we told Rick the same thing because you get both of you guys so far. That's 2 weeks in a row that my mind has just melted because so much information. And but no, sincerely, if you ever want to come on and just talk and say hey, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, once you start rolling some stuff out, let us know.
Okay, we'll do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
and I just have to say thanks for coming on because I mean, this is the reason Andrew and I put ourselves out there. Mostly Andrew because I do a lot of the back end work. But I mean, we put ourselves out there. We look for guests who know a lot more than we do, because this is how we learn, and this is how our listeners learn. We have to admit that we don't know everything, which we don't, and then go find somebody that knows a lot more than we do and beg and plead to get them to come on the show, and then melt me and Andrew's mind down with the knowledge bombs.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't pretend to be the most knowledgeable in the room, but I'm usually the most motivated to make sure everybody's trained, and that's what I run with. I usually, like you guys, I try to find smarter people than me, and it makes me look smart. Wow, you found this guy, yeah.
And so really what you learn is you got to find someone smarter than you, and you absorb what they know. I mean, that's how we all learn. So,
Yep.
But yeah, well, again, let us know when things roll out.
Okay.
I'll keep my eye on stuff, and we'll talk to you more about PrepperNet. And yeah, if we don't talk to you until Prepper Camp, which I hope we do, but we'll be seeing you at Prepper Camp again.
Okay.
So,
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for your time.
No, thanks for coming on with us. And for everybody
Yes,
that's
thank you.
listening, check the show description. I've got links to PrepperNet and Prepping Academy. And if y'all want to follow up with Forrest, by all means, those are two good places to find him. And if you beg and plead and badger us, we'll definitely try to have him back on the show at a later date. All right. Matter of Facts Podcast. This is episode 98. I think, yeah, we'll go with that. Signing off for the night. Good night, everybody.
bye.
Has your data been hacked? Do you feel uneasy about the vulnerability of your personal information online? Were you involved in the Target, LinkedIn, or Microsoft data leaks? Don't know? If not, then pay attention. Join Forrest Garvin from PrepperNet for a free webinar on privacy and security. Gain insights into safe internet browsing, VPNs, crafting online aliases, secure emails, detecting if your data has been hacked, and managing passwords. Secure your spot today for this webinar on privacy and security. It's free. This webinar delves into comprehensive strategies for bolstering your online privacy. We've got you covered, from fortifying your passwords to shielding your financial information and mastering state-of-the-art encryption techniques. We're offering 2 convenient dates to suit your schedule. Reserve your spot now at preppernet.com/privacy. Don't let cyber threats erode your peace of mind any longer. Take the first step toward a safer, more secure online experience by joining us for our free webinar. Remember, knowledge is power when it comes to safeguarding your privacy. Sign up now at preppernet.com/privacy. We'll see you there.